function, you know, pop in there if you do have any questions. If I am looking over here, that's because I'm looking at my other screen. So do feel free, if I've ignored your question for some time, please just shout at me instead. You've also got the raise hand function as well. So that should be all good. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started. So essentially this is going to go through your basics to get you live. So there's other functionality that I'm not going to go through in too much detail today, such as, you know, creating blocks or web forms. This is just purely getting basics right first and going through all the steps that you need to do to be able to get your website from A to B. There's no two ways about it. It's a lengthy process, as I've all pre-warned you all. But once you've done it, it's such a good achievement, and you will have a brand spanking new site, and you'll be very, very happy with what you've achieved. And obviously, we've got support along the way. So rather than me just talking at you, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what it is you'll actually be working on. So after this call, you guys will be given an email at some point either today or tomorrow morning with access to your new sites. So they've all been created based on the details that you've given us. You'll notice that your logos aren't yet in place, but not to worry. Once you go live, you will get your logos in place for you. So you've all been given the right permissions. So when you do get the link to your website, just double check those for me. Make sure that you can log in, make sure that everything's in working order, and obviously just flag any issues that you might have. So in terms of actually what it is you need to do then, let me just admit whoever that person is. Sorry, my computer is a little bit slow.
All right, just let people, you carry on.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Debbie. So here we go then. Here is the homepage. So you'll be pleased to know that the homepage is actually the nicest one to do because it's got barely anything for you to update. So it's automatically done for you for the most part. You've got the top main navigation here is set, so you don't need to worry too much about that. So just to reassure you all of the website and all of the navigation has gone through user testing. So, you know, it's gone through with Local Health Watch. We've done pilots when we're creating it, and you guys are now actually, I think we've got 56 sites live. So by now we have ironed out all of those tweaks, touch wood. However, you know, if you're working on anything and you see anything that you'd like to have a bit more of an in-depth chat about, please do just give me a shout either today or we can have a bit more conversation in our one-to-one calls. So yeah, so everything's gone through user testing. The main navigation is there based on that. So, you know, any changes that we do make to the top main navigation has to also go through testing. It needs to be user evidence to make sure that, you know, we're making that experience as good as possible for the people that actually use our site. However, in terms of the rest of the site, apart from the homepage, it is all template. So, you know, we'll work with you to kind of create the content that's actually suitable for, or create the layout that's suitable for you on each different pages, which we'll go through in a bit more detail in a minute. So this bit here is a homepage carousel. So this is something that you will have to sort out yourselves. Basically, it's kind of the best thing about it is a bit of a promotional slot. So whatever you're working on at the moment, try and get that across to people. Oh, we have a question already. Amanda?
Sorry, I was just going to say, Laura, are you sharing your screen or are we supposed to be just looking at you at the moment?
You are supposed to be seeing my screen, but I'm assuming you can't see it.
No, I can see you.
Oh, you lucky thing. No, let me just change that. I will make sure that you can see that. Let's try again. Is this now showing for you?
No, it literally is showing just a little round dot. Oh yeah, found. Yep, that's it.
Definitely, it's up there. Yeah, everyone can see that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I can see lots of nods. Thank you very much for highlighting that. That would have been a bit of a shame trying to do a demonstration and just you see my face. So yeah, so this bit up here is the top carousel. So it's got accessibility features in terms of you can play, pause. So on that, the whole site has gone through an accessibility audit. So the advice that we will give you is kind of in line with that audit as well, to try and make sure that we're retaining that accessibility throughout the whole process. So for example, things like screen readers, we'll be talking about imagery in terms of putting alt text so that screen readers can pick that up. There's a lot of different functionality throughout the site which actually has been in place since the accessibility audit, so I'll just highlight those things for you so that you're aware of them. But the main one being this homepage carousel. So like I say, you can pause, you can play, depending on whatever the user wants, but it does go on a rotational basis. So as long as you've got one up there, that's all you're going to need. Like I said, it's for a promotional feature. So whatever you're doing, maybe, you know, if you're doing a consultation, you're pushing, sharing your views, whatever, on a specific subject, that's the place for that. Moving down the homepage then, so you've got your news and views section. So this is automated, like I said before. So actually you don't really need to have to worry about this section too much. Your content, as long as you've got content, this is already filled in for you. You have got the option to change whatever's in this the larger slot. So that's, again, think about promotional function on your homepage. That's another promotional feature for you. Moving down, we've got this testimonial feature, so that will change every time that someone lands on your website. A different one will appear, so that's just for you to kind of amend. A lot, as I said before, a lot of it is template text, so at the moment we're just kind of showing you how it would look if it was to all be filled out. The next section then is reports. Again, nice and automated for you, so if you've got new reports, that will pull through. And then you've got advice and information content, which we've actually put in a couple of articles for you to get you started, as I appreciate that moving on to this new site, the advice information is actually pulled out, and for quite a lot of you, it won't be a function that you've actually probably used too much of, although a lot of you do the advice information for people around the country. In terms of the space on the website, we've managed to bring that one out to really highlight that that is a function of our Health Watch. So to kind of make sure that you guys have got content, so you're not creating content in the first instance, we've actually got some national advice pieces from Health Watch England, which we've already moved on to here. I would encourage you, all of you, to go and have a look at those and make sure that you're happy with them, and also see if you can localize them where possible as well. So for example, like even just looking at this one, what's domestic abuse and how can I get support? Maybe there's local organisations that actually you can use this as an opportunity to point people towards. And then moving down, you've got a sign up for our news alerts form down here. So this is just a really simple web form. I'll go into web forms in a bit more detail shortly. But if any of you have MailChimp and that's what you tend to use to sign people up to your news alerts, then just let us know in our one-to-one calls, and we can actually change this block so that instead of a web form where you download the content and have to upload to MailChimp, we can actually just automate that process for you so that people are taken straight to that MailChimp form. That's not a problem. As you can see on my screen, we've got this masquerade thing here, but this is not something that you guys will have. Essentially what this means is that anyone from the Health Watch England team can go in and see whether perhaps you may have glitches that come about, and it helps us determine whether the problems are with your site, your account, or actually it's a bit of a network-wide issue. In terms of the support that we give you, the Health Watch England team will continue to support you throughout the whole website process. It's not something that, you know, just goes as soon as you go live. And in terms of maintenance and things like that, we're your first point of call. So if there is anything wrong, do talk to us, as opposed to the web developer Circle. So we kind of act as the liaison between you guys and them. It just helps, one, simplicity, because actually quite a lot of the time we can actually solve the issues that you're having, so we can help you with that. And two, that's one of the reasons why the costs are a little bit low as well, is because we can obviously help provide that support first, rather than Circle having to liaise with every issue that a lot of you will be having. And as obviously the more and more people we get on board, the more potential issues there could be. So then you come down to the footer. It's really simple. Jobs, contact us. Fairly straightforward pages, which I'll go through in a bit. But you've got your terms and conditions, accessibility and cookies down here. They have got content on them already, so it's just one less job for you to do. However, I would encourage you to read them to make sure you're happy. We haven't done the privacy statement because that's individual to your local Health Watch. However, we do have guidance on that. So, you know, if you do not have one already, which most of you should, but if you don't for whatever reason, we can help support with that. And when you get through your site, you'll see that depending on which social media icons appear, depend on the content, the URLs that you've provided me already. So if there's any more, please just let me know and I can add those. But do double check those when you get given your site to make sure that they're all pointing to the right places. So going up to the top, I'm now going to go through each of the main navigation items and kind of tell you what's needed as a basis to go live. So literally as a minimum, what you need to do. So they have your save page. This is just a simple web form. So it's completely up to you whether you keep it as it is or whether you want to change it. So what we've done is keep it quite basic. So just allow people the opportunity to select their service, you know, their name, email address, and what actually their feedback is, just because we found that actually the simpler the better. So that kind of gets more responses. A big long form works a little bit better. We tend, for our experience anyway, tends to be for like more specific issues. However, it's down to your Health Watch, and if there is a form that you want to expand, just let us know and we can help you with that. The only real requirement on here on the actual page is to just change the imagery. So I will be along the way just saying about just continuously to change the imagery. Just bear in mind that obviously whilst this looks brand new to you, you're also one of 6 in this case, I think, or maybe 7 that have this site. So you've all got the same imagery along with the other local health watch that have also been given this site as well. So it just helps you kind of localize that and get your own look and feel. Ian, you have a question. You're on mute though, Ian, if you do have a question. Okay, Ian, I can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry. We don't normally use Teams. We use Zoom, and it's a lot easier. I just wanted to ask the title of this page, which I think was what? Could you just scroll back up slightly? Keep going. Yeah, you share your views. Is it possible to change that to that text?
The title of the page?
Yeah.
What would you call it?
Well, we actually issue cards, reply paid postage cards, which are very similar to this, and we call them "Tell us what you think."
Okay, yeah, I mean that's absolutely fine. You can change the name. So what you can't change is this main header, but you can change the page names underneath. So you know you can change, for example, like you say, this one is share your views, the same way as you will be able to change the title of your different content pieces. So that's absolutely fine.
Okay, because it just would be look a lot neater if we can have them at least saying the same thing, even if they don't ask exactly the same questions. Thank you.
No problem. And Peter, you've got a question too?
Hi there. Yes, I shall take my hand down while I unmute myself. Is it possible to replace the web form with an iframe, for example, if we've got an online tell your story form from somewhere else?
Yes, so you can do that. You can embed surveys. So, for example, SurveyMonkey, you know, that's been one that's come around before. What I would raise or as an issue is perhaps the accessibility of that. So when you embed an iframe, what we found is that actually people have to scroll not just on the page, but within that iframe setup. Which, you know, for accessibility reasons can make that a little bit more difficult for people. So it's a bit of a trial and error, really. So we'll work with you to see what kind of works for your individual health watch on that one. But it might be that actually it's better just replicate the survey that you've already got onto here. But it is possible. Like I say, it's just more the accessibility side that we'll just work with you to make sure that we can overcome that as much as possible. Cool. In terms of the web form then, if you go onto the button that says web form, it will show you all the different fields at the back that you've got already up there. You can, as you can tell, see you've got the new component name, and then you've got a type here, which I don't think you can see the drop down, but essentially it's got about 10 different fields types. The fuller guidance so what I'm going through today is a starter guidance, but the fuller guidance is essentially we'll go through all of the nitty-gritty sites, parts of the site. So for example, all of the different field types, that will go through that in a lot of detail, so you can kind of try and use that to navigate the web form as best you can, because what we do is come onto a bigger session a little bit later in terms of how to build up a web form. But like I said before, we're trying to get the basics right today. So that might, if you want to develop it a little bit further, that's just a conversation for the Healthwatch England team in your one-to-one calls. So you've got the ability to have conditionals, but what you do need to do as a minimum is just assign an email address to your web forms to ensure that people, when they are submitting to your web form, the submission is going to somewhere and not nowhere. So at least someone's picking that one up. You've also got under form settings the ability to change the confirmation message. So at the moment it just says a simple thank you. It's up to you if you want to make that any larger or kind of point people to different areas of your site if you would like. So that's the Have Your Say page. Sorry about that. It sounds like a plane, but it's not. It's a lorry, I think. You've got the key projects page underneath the Have Your Say. This is completely up to you whether you want to keep it or not. So essentially what we did when we first had the Healthwatch sites was this was combined. So we had the share your views web form and the key projects together. And actually what we found was that the form was just going further and further down the page. So what we did was we split those out, and actually some people decide to keep this key projects page to talk about maybe your key priorities, the different areas of work that you've got going, just to kind of keep it all in one space. But it's not essential. So if this is not something that you want to do, you don't have to have this to go live. That's completely your call. So what I'm going to talk about now is the news and reports section. So this is going to take up the bulk of your time. It is a laborious task. There's no two ways about it. But it is really important that you move over as much content as possible. There's a couple of reasons for this. The main one being the redirects issue. To try and just explain it simply, I guess. Currently, your site has got loads of different links that obviously are pointing to somewhere. Now, when your site goes live, it's going to take over that old site, and all the links are going to change. So what you need to do is kind of join those gaps to provide an old URL and a new URL, and we can, bridge that gap for people. So actually, when they land on any links, they're going to the new site. Now, Google will recognize all of your old links still. So obviously, if you haven't moved over that content and we haven't redirected those links, that's going to now point to a bunch of dead links, and your site's going to basically be deranked from Google side of things. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, so that we don't drop any organic traffic. So we don't drop anyone that's looking for your site is able to easily find it. They're not taken to any dead links, and that will basically help the way that we can best help that is by moving all of that content from A to B. Now, naturally, there'll be some pieces where actually you're like, do you know what? I really just don't want to move this across. This isn't relevant anymore. I don't want to do that. That's fine. However, it's still important to, record all of those links that you're not moving across, so that we can at least direct people to the landing pages of those news reports, for example, so that people are still going somewhere rather than nowhere. It's also important to be able to move a lot of content across because, we are a public funded organisation at the end of the day. So we need to show what we've been up to and where that public money has gone over a period of time, rather than just actually let's use this as an opportunity to, have a really nice content filled site moving forward. Actually, we do need to go back. We do need to reflect where that money's gone. So it is important for that reason too. So in terms of creating an article, I'm going to take you through step by step. And if there are any questions, I'll take them at the end. So to create an article, you'd go to content, add content, and go to article. And probably about half an hour will load. No, there we go. So as with everything, you've got a title. So there's a mixture of mandatory fields and just extra additional fields here. So obviously with the mandatory ones, we'll have the little star. So that won't allow you to save until that's all published, until they're all filled, sorry. So you've got your title, you've got your article types. So I'm not sure if you can see my drop down if I'm sharing my screen, so I'll just go through them quickly. You've got advice and information. So as I said on the home page, if we go back to that, thinking about the advice information section, if you've selected that as your article type, that's going to automatically pull through to that section of the website. If you've got a blog, a news or response, they're all going to pull through to the news and views, which is that top bit of the home page. And then if you've got a report, that's naturally going to pull through to the place where you've got reports. You have the ability to name an author. So again, On here, actually, you don't have, there's not an example, there's only a Lorem Ipsum author. So essentially, what that will do is if you've got a blog, for example, just you might want to name the author next to that blog. So whoever, you know, say if it's your chair or whatever, you might want to add an author there. Do not author it after just yourself, although you might be really proud of moving over 500 articles. That's not really what that function's for. It is, you know, it's for that blog function. So just make sure that that's how you're using that function. Your scheduling options, so you can publish, set to publish on a certain date and time, and you can also set to unpublish on a certain date and time. So it's quite a useful feature if you've got things ahead of a campaign ready, but actually you're not ready to publish it yet. You can still schedule it and almost forget about it. And the same with unpublishing it. You know, if there's very time-specific content, actually you might want to kind of take that job away from yourself and just set to unpublish on the date that you don't need it anymore. So tags and themes. This is an area where I think quite a lot of Local Health Watch struggle in the first bit. So I'm going to spend a bit of time just talking you through and why they're important. The best way to think of it is how your content is structured and filtered on the front end and the back end of the site. So on the front end is where you've got your themes. So there's a select list here, which has gone through, again, like I said before, a lot of testing. So a lot of Local Health Watch we've worked with at this point and basically established which themes are work for everybody. Naturally, there might be a couple where actually you're like, do you know what, that content doesn't seem to fit into any of these themes, and I would like to have an additional one. That's a conversation to have with her Health Watch England team. We can either add that one in for you if it's relevant, or actually point you into the right direction if that's what's needed. I'm just going to show you on the front end of the site of how a user uses the themes to filter their content.
Laura, sorry, can you just zoom in on your screen a bit? People are having trouble seeing the text.
Okie doke. Is that a little bit better?
Cheers.
Thank you. So if I go from a user perspective, you've got the themes here, and that's where they're going to filter out their news and reports. It's based on those themes. However, for the tags, that's kind of how you filter on the back end of the site. So actually a user doesn't use the tags, but what we're doing is we're creating content and trying to link it together with consistent tags so that actually people are shown content which is more likely to be clicked on by them because they're interested in it. For example, what I mean by that is if I go on to, I wonder if any of these are going to work. So the example news story that we've got, under here, you've got you might be interested in. So whatever this has been tagged in, this is also going to pull through relevant content under the you might be interested in. So for example, if you've got a mental health article and you've tagged yours with mental health, you're also going to be bringing through that you might be interested in with mental health content. It's really important when you're using the tags that you use the tag list. So I would recommend just opening link in new tab. So again, through testing, we've gone through and we've got a big list of tags, and I would be very surprised if you can't find a single tag that will go with your content. If there is that issue, again, that's just a conversation to have with the Health Watch England team, and we'll definitely help you to find either a way to resolve that. Please don't just make up loads of tags, because then that tag function is not going to work. So for example, we've had people before trying to tag content with a specific specific hospital in mind. So for example, the Royal London Hospital, they've had an article about that and that's what they've chosen to tag something with. However, they've not actually come back to repeat content on that. So that tag's not going to work for anything else. It's only going to work for that one piece of content. So actually, if I tag that as hospital and I'm talking about the number of hospitals in my area, then that's going to, you know, that content will at least be filled with that tag hospital. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I say, it's one of those things which I think a bit of trial and error actually helps Local Health Watch to overcome that. But it tends to be something that Local Health Watch do struggle with it initially. But what we'll do is in our one-to-one calls, we will go over that in a bit more detail with you. Moving down, you've got your lead paragraph. So that's a really short description of what your paragraph, what your article contains. So do try and make it snappy. You know, try and put a call to action in there to encourage people to read the article. It's worth noting that this actually pulls through, you know, when you're sharing stuff on social media, that lead paragraph bit of text that tends to pull through to other areas. So it kind of serves as a bit of a purpose to kind of encourage people to carry on reading. You've got a option to have an image. So I would always encourage you to have images across your articles. It makes it so much more engaging. And also what happens with this is, again, with the social media, those images will pull through to your social media content, which kind of saves you a job, to be honest, when you're trying to source pictures. So if you can get it done for your article, at least you can make that consistent, and that image is consistent whenever you're talking about that piece. You can hide main image, so you might think that that's a bit strange. Why would you do that? But essentially what that does is, if you want to choose to have a video right at the top of your article, you don't really want to have an image followed straight by a video. It looks a bit clunky. But what you do want is you want that image to pull through to other areas of your site. So when you're sharing it, that image still pulls through, but it's not actually appearing on the article itself, if you've got a video, for example. You've got a second paragraph summary option here, but to be honest, I would say probably ignore this. This is basically there if you choose not to have an image. You can have some additional text as well as your lead paragraph, which might be quite handy. For example, if I go to the home page to show you why. You can see here that this has, some, you've got the lead paragraph pulling through with the title and the image. However, if you don't have an image, you're going to have a bunch of grey space. That's what that second paragraph summary function does. It just enables you to have some more text instead of that grey space. However, as I said, I would always encourage you to have imagery. So you've got, in terms of, that's just all the build up now. And now we're actually coming down to the core content of your article. And these are split up by different paragraph types. So to add a paragraph type, you just select from the drop down list, which I'm not sure if you can see, so I'll just quickly go through what each one is. So you've got text. If I add a new paragraph and we wait for it to load. That is, your basic text. It does have a lot of functions. So if I just were to go test quickly, if you highlight this and select the normal, you've got a bunch of heading formats in here, and headings are super important. Excuse me. If they help, navigate the reader throughout the article. You'll hear us always pick up on this when we give feedback in our calls around article styling and content. It's just really important for the user to get these right, and it also helps with your SEO as well. If you have your keywords in your headings, that's also going to help with your Google recognizing your articles. You've also got styles here. So, say if you have loads of different ways to get contact, you can just, instead of having them within a paragraph and, you have to kind of search out what the detail is, that can really easily split them up using the styling icons. You've got additional functionality here. So small print. So I don't know, maybe you might want to, I've used this recently when I was talking about Healthwatch Wiltshire and the partnerships that they were working with. And actually, I didn't want to list them all because there was like 12. So I just put a little asterisk, and this was quite nice at the bottom just to have it in small print. So it's just kind of like an additional thing that's on your article, but not the main focus. You've got quote author, which just moves that side by side, but there's actually different quote functionality, which I will show you shortly. You've got your bold and your italics, the same normal stuff that you would get on most text boxes. The one thing I do want to show you, though, is this quote function, which is like this. And essentially, it's really good for if you have, long paragraphs and long quotes. Use this part for the quote function rather than the quote paragraph, which I'll show you in a minute, which is really useful if you've got a really impactful sentence. But when you're talking about a really long, lengthy quote, it's really good to just use that indentation here, just to show that someone's talking, but you're not just putting it in a really bulky paragraph, which I'll show you soon. You've got the ability to link. Naturally, it's quite handy with a website, being able to link to other websites and also internal links. It's really important to note that when you're linking in the first instance, when you're going live, do make sure that you take out of that WIB bit. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but hopefully you can. But you see all this bit here, which it says the main Healthwatch website, and then you've got the WIB. You want to delete all of that because actually when you go live, that's no longer going to exist. However, everything after that / is going to exist. So that's the bit where you're going to be able to keep those internal links still working even when you go live. That's a really important point for internal links. If you go to target, you do have the option to select new window. So if you are pointing towards maybe an NHS website, you might want to, rather than detract traffic from your site, you might want to just open it up in a new window, and actually people can exit off that and still return to your site. Just keeps them on there for longer. There is the ability to have anchor links. So if you've got a super long article, you know, and you might want to have three key questions at the top, and you can make people jump towards those. But in terms of that guidance, I will come on to that a little bit later, because it is a little bit more complicated and actually might not be relevant for you guys at this moment in time. It's just something to be aware of. And you can also embed as well. So a little bit similar, Peter, to what you were saying earlier with your survey and your iframe. You can embed things by putting that code into here, just by that button. However, 9 times out of 10, I would say that you can probably find an easier way of doing it. So for example, when you've got video, which is the main reason why you would do it, you've actually got a paragraph type for a video, where you can just literally put in that URL, that YouTube link, and it will bring it up and actually gets people just to see the video in your article itself. And it sizes quite nicely by doing it that way. Sometimes the embed function can like I said before, throw it out or back a little bit in terms of how it displays. You've got a text in grey box, which is exactly the same as a text box, except that it's grey. So it actually breaks up the content quite nicely on your site. So I would really recommend this to really strengthen your call to actions, and also to bring out your key findings if you have any. So I would normally have the format of having I would have a heading, I would have my text, and then I would link my content. So let me just quickly show you how this works. So when I've linked it, it turns pink. It's worth noting that pink is a call to action across the site. So if it's not linked, if it's not pink, then that means you haven't linked it properly. If you highlight the link and go to styles, you'll now see that you've got button options, which you didn't have before. So to be able to see the button options, you do need to link your text, and then you'll be able to add a button. You can't just add a button without having a linked piece of text first. So if I were to click that, you can see that it's just really quite nicely call to action, a header, a short description, and then a button. I really would recommend you do that. Downloads. So when you're doing reports and you've selected report as your article type right at the top, it's just literally a case of choosing your file and uploading that. You can see that you've got a number of available file types that you're allowed, so you shouldn't have any problems in uploading, particularly as most of them are going to be PDFs, although you can do PowerPoint if you want to. And they are quite large file sizes as well that it goes up to, so you shouldn't really have too much problem uploading any content. Obviously, let us know if you do. You have got the ability to have images within the article, both to take up the whole width of the article, which is just the top one, which is image full width, or you can have image float left and float right, which naturally speaks for itself. You can have it over to one side or the other, depending on how you want your article to look. However, to be honest, in my experience, I find that just plain text and just making sure that your headings are accurate and it's displayed nicely, that tends to do the job, to be honest, after you've got that one at the top. And then you've got your quote function. So as I said before, you've got the one in text, which I would recommend for really lengthy paragraph types. However, if you've got an impactful quote that you really want to bring out, just use the paragraph quote type that way instead. And I'm going to show you now an example of how all of those things look in real life, because it's quite hard, I think, to get your mind around what it looks like on the back end and then the front. So this is your title. This is the article type that you've selected. So in this case, it's news. This is your lead paragraph, your image. This has been done using the text paragraph, so you can see it's super simple. And these are the different heading types you've got. This is that quote paragraph I was talking about. So you can see what I mean. If you had like a massive paragraph in there, it's just going to take up the page and doesn't really do serve its purpose, which is to be impactful. You've got the number function, and this is the longer quote style. If you have a bit more, if it's a bit more of a wordier quote, and this is the text in grey box here, which, as you can see, is quite nice to bring out a call to action. So carrying on down to the back end, then you've got call to action blocks. So this basically will serve as this little function here. So it just finished off the article quite nicely. And and essentially we have pre-filled a couple for you. So you know, there's one for volunteering in there, share your views and advice and information. You are more than welcome to add your own. All you need to do there is go to content, add content, and go to call to action block. And you can also use that to edit the current ones as well. If you want to add anything, feel free. Moving down, you've got the related content block. So what I talked about earlier was that you might be interested in, and that's going to be generated with your tags and what tags you've put on your article. However, you can actually select articles if you want specific things to appear in that spot. So for example, if I start typing, I'm going to be brought up with a bunch of titles that I know. And actually, if I select those, they're going to be brought in that you might be interested in section. So that's just really helpful, particularly if you're trying to link in loads of content together that are related. So you want to make sure it's all tied in. So for example, if you've got a campaign that you're running, and you've actually got content for that one campaign, you might want to make sure that that's being pulled through to that section. You've got different options here which are referred to the promotional slots that I've mentioned briefly around the homepage, but also around the news and reports landing page. So if I select this option of promote to homepage, that is going to make this article appear in this big slot here. Sorry, I've zoomed in, so obviously it looks a little bit different than it would normally. So this one here, that's where that would pull through. Now, if you select the bit that says promote to carousel, it's going to pull through and make sure that it's on this carousel here on your news and reports landing page. It does not link through to the homepage carousel right at the top of your homepage. They have to be made separately to that. So that depends on whatever issue you would like to promote. And you have to be able to do that. You go content, add content, and homepage carousel. And again, the back end of it looks very self-explanatory in terms of the different fields. So you'll be able to use the guidance to be able to work that one out. Your URL is automatically generated and is done for SEO reasons. So please be careful if you do make any changes. So what I mean by that is you'll notice that I'm going to use our network site as an example, but we've actually got the top here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it too well because it only lets me zoom in for the content. But essentially it's got your article type. So in this case, it's got guidance, but this is where your bit will be news or report. You've then got the date, so that's whatever date you've published your article, and then you've got the title here, so it will pull out the title. So obviously your title should always include keywords. So if you are making any amendments, do just make sure that you keep this original structure of the date and the article type. Otherwise, you'll notice that the actual function, your site structure is just going to kind of go out of whack a little bit. You'll see what I mean if you do it. So as long as you stick to the function, the structure of the URL, you should be fine. But if you are noticing any problems with how it looks and you're thinking this doesn't look quite right, do just flag that with the team and we can help that. A lot of you obviously will be uploading content that goes way back when, so it's actually going to go back to 2018. When you automatically save an article, you're going to press save and it's going to automatically generate that date based on what you've on the date you're doing it. However, if you go down to this authoring information, you'll have the ability once you've saved to then change the date on there. So you can backdate your article against, whatever the dates are on your current website or report dates, those kind of things. Again, the instructions for that is in the fuller guidance. And then to publish, you just press publish. So that's that. I say just that's that. There's actually quite a lot in there, but I promise you, it does become second nature after a while. It's just about, just getting used to the functionality at first, and then we will feedback, like I say, to kind of help you out and help you cut corners if you can. Any questions on I can see something in the chat box, so I'm just going to have a quick look over there. Nope, but Alice has got a hand up. Alice, would you like to? I think you're on mute if you haven't spoken yet.
I have to hold the mic to my mouth for some reason. I was wondering if you could recap over the internal links that you were talking about, where you have to take the WID thing out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to just go back to this this paragraph text then. So if I were to create a button or any link actually, so I'm just going to put find out more here. I'm going to highlight that, and then I'm going to go to the link button, and I'm going to copy and paste the URL that is going to be my internal link to the rest of the site. However, what I don't want is I don't want this bit here. Let me see if I can zoom in. Yes, I can. Perfect.
Is that just whilst it's beta version?
That's it. That's correct. Yeah. So whilst you've got this WIB bit, so you'll get your site, and it will say, you know, Telford and Wrekin -wib.co.uk or something, and you just need to delete that, and then you'll notice it goes to other here. That's absolutely fine. You want to just keep that as it is and press save, and then that just stops you from, when you go live, all your links are going to still work, rather than if you've got that WIB bit, all of that will be broken once you go live. So obviously we don't want that to happen.
No. Absolutely. Sorry.
Okay.
So if it's, I noticed last time it said no. Does that need to stay, or at what point do you stop it? Sorry.
So the node basically is you get a new node every time you create an article or a page, and that will form part of the up here. I don't know if you can see that, sorry, but it basically says you've got the node. When you're in edit mode, you'll be able to see your node.
Yeah.
So you can use that as your internal link as well. So if you wanted to put, you know, whatever node number here, /node, whatever, you can also do that. That's just kind of up to you really. And that node, again, that's going to kind of stay the same once you go live, because it's just attributed to that page. It's almost like a page number, you know, that's where you've got, you know, node 108 probably will indicate that you've got 108 pages potentially on there.
Yeah. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Not a problem. Let's make this go back a bit. Paul, I've seen that you've, in the chat box, you've said about the Translate facility. Will our site have a link? So I'm assuming that's for the Google Translate. Just to reassure you all with that one, actually, we have been doing some work with Circle around that side of things, and we are looking to roll that out very soon. So by the time your sites go live, you'll be able to have that Google Translate facility, which will appear somewhere near your Contact Us button, and basically we'll have, you know, the option to translate your website into, I don't even know how many languages, I think it's about 99 or something like that. So that facility will be available, but it's not here now, but obviously when you go live, you'll see that. And I'm assuming that's why you had your hand up, Paul, unless you have any other questions.
Yeah, that's right. It was also just about would the system have a voiceover for those who are visually impaired?
No. So in terms of what we do with that is you are able to have tools like Recite Me and Browse Aloud on here. So, you know, but that's not a cost that Health Watch England cover. So we can provide you. We've recently actually gone out to, and we'll talk a bit more in detail in the user discussion group, which I'll tell you a bit more about in a bit. But we've gone out to Browse Aloud and Recite Me to get you kind of some quotes for the local Health Watch around that, if that's something you want to do. It does prove very expensive, I'm not going to lie. And there is actually an app which we've found out from Recite Me that we can actually tell users about, so users can actually install this software, and not just it doesn't just work on our site, but, you know, all of their websites. So it might actually be that that's the way forward that we go, but that will be in discussion for in a bit more detail. That's just a very quick overview on that topic, but you'll be able to find out more about that near the end of the month when we do a website discussion group. Cool. So I'm just going to move on from that then. Alice, your hand's up still, but I'm assuming that that's an old hand. Yes, okay, wonderful, thank you. So I'm kind of lost my train of thought there. So yes, that's basically what I've just talked about there, is all the news, reports, content, how to do that. As I said, I would actually start there. I would ignore the rest of your site for the time being, as though, you know, you might get attracted to all these other pages. The other pages only work really when you've got your content up there anyway. So I would just really focus on your reports, focus on your articles, and that can give us an opportunity for us to feed that back to you in the first call, rather than kind of you getting really far down the line and then we feed back. We do try and do that as soon as possible so that we can kind of get off to good habits. So I'm going to then talk about the Get Involved page now. So this is a page. So our website is basically created with articles and pages. So articles are built up with paragraph types, which is what I've just shown you. However, if you get to a page, this is built up with blocks, and it is a bit more complex in terms of creating the original page with all these additional blocks. So what we do in this call is we're going to just talk about how to edit the blocks that currently exist. But I'm not going to go into detail about how to create blocks and pages from scratch because that's just a bit too complicated. And as I said, it's just important to get the basics right now, and we can come on to blocks and pages in a bit more detail at a later date. The best way to figure out whether your page is built up with articles or whether it is indeed, whether a page is built up with blocks or whether it is indeed an article that's with paragraph types is just simply going into edit mode. So if I click on edit here, this is a page with blocks and there's actually no content really in the back end. I've got my lead paragraph, but I know for a fact that on the other end, there's loads of content. I've just seen loads of pictures, I've seen loads of writing. So actually I can determine, yep, this is 100% a page and I need to go into each individual block and that's how I'm going to make my changes. So if I hover over, you can see that there's a little cog here in the top right hand corner of all of your blocks. There's a little cog and you just press configure block. And that's going to take you to the back end. My Alexa's decided to go off randomly. So you can change your image, which obviously is key for all across your site. You're going to have lots of imagery to change, and most of these actually will be in blocks. So just go on that cog, select configure block, and go into image change. You then can scroll down a little bit and you'll get to the block body. And this structure is exactly the same as the paragraph type. So that's, you know, something that you can get used to quite quickly. It's just change the text on here. As with everything, you can actually keep the text pretty much as it is. So across the Get Involved page, the volunteer page, there's actually limited spaces for you to have to edit. But obviously, if you actually do want to build up those pages anyway, just give us a shout and we can definitely help you with that. So for example, for this one here, you've got an impact stat, which is, you know, this is a national figure. You might want to keep that. You might want to change the wording slightly, but that's completely up to you. Or you might actually want to localize it to talk about the amount of people that you've actually helped in your local area. You've got a couple of blocks here. That might suffice, but you actually might want 4. Let us know. We can build that one up for you. You've got different quote blocks here. So again, everything's the same. Just go in, configure block. It'll take you to the pretty much the same back end. The only big difference will be whether it's got an image or not. That might change it a lot for you. But other than that, just keep everything as it is. And let us know and we can change that. So this will change the region settings. That just talks about where it's going to sit on your page. And then the node value down here, picking up on what Alice said earlier, that's where you're going to link with your nodes in terms of telling that block which page it's going to be assigned to. But again, we don't really need to worry about that. What we need to focus on is just editing that information and making sure that it's linking to the right spaces on our site. On the Get Involved page, we have got this pull through of events, which is automatic. As you'll see, there's a lot of pages. So thanks to Debbie. Debbie's gone through and actually put the whole year's worth of awareness days on this site, so you actually don't have to worry about it. Naturally, with the day and age that we are, we're actually not doing that many events, although hopefully, you know, we'll change that soon, either if we're doing virtual events or you know, fingers crossed, you know, we don't have to stay inside forever. But until that point, at least you know you've got content on there, so that's quite good. Please do have a look and use it as an opportunity as well if you've got an awareness day that's relevant for, I don't know, a piece of work that you've done. So for example, Ask Your Pharmacist Week, maybe you've got a piece of advice that you want to link with that awareness day that actually you've got on your website. Maybe you just want to link the two together, have a little look and see what you can do there. You got Work With Us space, and then this one just tells people, takes people back to the Share Your Experiences form. So that is the Get Involved page pretty much in a nutshell. It's fairly simple. You've then got the volunteer page. So however big or small you want this really depends on how many volunteers you've got and how much content you've got around your volunteers. Some Health Watch have loads of different blogs around their different volunteer types. However, some people actually don't have anything at all, so we can strip this back or add in depending on what you've got. So at the moment we've just got a bit of a template here about why people would want to volunteer with us. Again, this is the national figure, so in terms of minimal updates, you just need to update this if you would like the local one. And what we've done here is based on what other local health watch have tended to do, is they've tended to just put some example roles of their local volunteers onto their website. However, it doesn't have to be that. Like I said earlier, it could just be a blog around what a specific volunteer has been up to. It could just be a call to action for how people can sign up for volunteers. It's completely up to you. And then you've got another quote and a thank you at the bottom. Leah said, did you say we can use our own pictures? Yes, you can. So you can use your own pictures across the site. You can also use the Flickr library, which I'm hoping most of you will be aware of. But Debbie, can you actually just pop that link in the box just so people can have access to it? So the Flickr library has got loads and loads of pictures on there of good quality of different local health watch events. Naturally, there isn't any since COVID, unfortunately. So although we tried our best to have a bit of a photo shoot with some masks on, I'm pretty sure we got told that we had to stay inside again. So we've just not been able to do it, unfortunately, as much as we've tried. But I would definitely encourage you to use your own pictures, to localize it where you can, but just at the same time be aware of the quality of them. You don't want to have a site that's new but has loads of pixelated images on there. So do just kind of be aware of that. And if you think, I'm not really sure if that looks right, it probably doesn't. So do just have a look at that Flickr library if you are struggling to find different images. So that's the volunteer page. The jobs page, I think this is my favourite page because it takes like no time at all to sort out, which is what everybody wants to do at the moment. So all you've got to do here is either say whether you've got a job to advertise or whether you've got no vacancies. Love it. It's done in 2 seconds, so you can move on and just get that one ticked off your list. The next section then is the what we do. So we have pre-filled this with a lot of content. Well, I say a lot of content with some content, which is, very generic stuff about who we are as Health Watch, what we do, what our purpose is, all that kind of stuff. You're more than welcome to keep it as it is. Or actually, you might want to just localize that a little bit too. We've actually embedded a little video there for you, which is in BSL, so it's nice and accessible for people, which just describes what Health Watch is. You can swap out for one of your own videos if that's what you prefer. Absolutely no problem. Again, this is a page built up predominantly of blocks. So if actually there's little areas which you'd like to have more of a focus on the what we do section. So an example would be someone has got a massive project with community partnerships, and actually that's something that they wanted to display in the what we do section. So what we did there was we just added another block in because